With me today, I have Edith Gagnon to my left, your component vice president. Just to give you a bit of information, you will see on your screen there is a sidebar bar on your left side where you could type in questions. The way we will proceed, we will take your questions at the end. We will answer all your questions. If there's any questions that we are not able to answer, we will answer you via a bulletin. We'll write an email either to you, but just to be open to everyone, I think we will put the answer in a bulletin to all. So basically today on the agenda, we're going to talk about the most common question asked by our members. And also we're going to talk about, we will discuss the PBS and the bidding on reserve and how to get a reserve schedule that you want. We have special guests with us today. First, I would like to introduce to you our Air Canada Component Reserve Committee Chairperson, Wesley Lazowski. Also with us today, you don't see the image, he's working on his computer right now, but we will have him shortly, our Air Canada Component PBS Chairperson, Paul Bouchard. We also have a technical support team with us. We have Carmela Emiri, that is our component co-chairperson of the Grievance Committee. She will be helping us with the sidebar questions. We also have Antonio Slam, our Secretary Treasurer at the component. We have Terry Nolan from QP National with us also. And so we will, and of course, our chairperson of the Communication Committee, Dominique Lavoie. So, Wesley, we're going to start with you. If you want to talk about the most common question that you receive from the reserve. Microphone is on. It's working. Hold on.
Well, I can tell everybody that this picture is probably better than my real face, so I may have to keep this one on.
Okay, Wesley, can we hear you? Dominic's microphone is unmuted.
Wesley, there appears to be a bit of a technical problem with your microphone. If you could please go on top, click the button More, and you will see a button down that says Switch to Phone, which will allow you to use your cellular phone line to connect and use your phone as your microphone. Okay, maybe try that out and we could go back to Michelle and Paul while you get that set up. It'll take you a couple minutes.
Okay, we apologize for that. Thank you, Wesley. It happened to us last week, so we know very well what you're experiencing. Just to let you know, we've been doing these webinar with other groups also. We're doing it with our ambassadors. We're doing it with our local vice president, and it's very well received. It's a great way to communicate. Sometimes there's a little glitch like that, so we ask you to be patient. But normally it's working very well. So maybe Paul, the invisible man, maybe we could turn to you and talk about the reserve and how to bid reserve from a PBS point of view. So Paul Bouchard, our chairperson of the PBS committee at the component. Paul.
Hello, everybody. It's Paul, the blue guy with the little bubble above his head. Apologies. I actually was on a webinar with Dominic earlier today, and everything was nice, but for some reason things aren't cooperating all that well. I've uploaded a presentation actually onto the site that you can take a look at with a few examples of things. Unfortunately, my screen is frozen. I can't pull it up for you now, but I can actually go through some of the things, especially some of the things that we start to see and comments that we get when dealing with reserve and reserve bidding when it comes to PBS. The main thing is that with PBS now and the introduction of bid groups, you actually have to, if you want to bid for reserve specifically, and if that's what your very first choice is, you actually have to put a step in, which is to put a start reserve bid group. It sounds like I'm saying the word bid twice, but it's actually called a Start Reserve Bid group. Put that at the top of your bid, and what that will do is when PBS reads your bid, it will direct the system to go to your first Start Reserve bid group. Your Start Reserve bid group, and that's where you'll put in all of your requests. If reserve is something that you prefer to have as part of if you cannot get a block of pairings that you want, you would then need to direct the system again to the Start Reserve bid group by putting an item such as else start bid group after asking for days off, or at the very bottom of a set of pairing bids, the clear schedule start next bid group, and then following that bid group with the Start Reserve bid group. Hopefully this. Whoops,
just a question. Are you showing your slide right now? Is it?
No, I'm not. I've asked if Dominic can kind of put it up, and I'm not sure if he can because it was uploaded.
I can. 1 second there, Paul.
Beautiful. Pictures are always better than 1,000 words. I can't control the screen, unfortunately. I can see everybody's lovely face, but I can't control the screen. So Dominic will have to kind of flip things for me.
Sure, I'm on the first page right now, Paul.
Beautiful. Okay, so essentially I'm just going to go through a couple of things. And whenever you start with an empty bid or whenever you go to the Start Bid Group tab in PBS, and I'm just highlighting this one, which is called Start Reserve Bid. That's the kind of bid group I'm going. You cannot put bid lines in there, but when PBS encounters this bid group, it will redirect the system to go to your first Start Reserve bid. So if we can go to the next slide. Lovely. So the other option that you also have within this is a max above. You might remember max above for anybody who was in and around prior to bid groups being implemented. You can actually state that I'll go on reserve, but only if there are less than X number of people who are already on reserve above me. So, for example, if you put a max above of 0, that means I don't want anybody to be senior to be on reserve. So if you do that, and you are indeed the very first person who would be on reserve, you would actually be moved to reserve. There's still no guarantee, mind you, about having days off because it gets a little complicated when it comes down, especially in the months of December and January, when it comes to having time off. But for the most part, putting that in will at least give you a better chance of getting the days off that you want. If you put an example of max above of 2, that means you could be the third person on reserve. So having a general idea of how many people may be on reserve in your base will give you an idea of what the possibility of being able to hold all, if not most, of your prefer off requests. And next slide, please. My lovely assistant. The purpose is exactly the same between the pairings bid or a reserve bid, so there's nothing really new there. Just remember that when you're bidding on reserve, you do have to respect a certain number of blocking rules. So it's a good idea to kind of plan things out if you're looking at a reserve pattern. You must be on for at least 3 days, with the exception of the start and end of a block month, and you can be off a minimum of 2 days, again, except for the start or end of the block month. So you have to kind of plan ahead if you're looking at setting up some sort of pattern with your days on and days off to keep these things in mind. Next slide, please. PBS has a built-in system in order to actually request a pattern of days on and off. You can set them here. Again, remembering that you have to have minimum of 3 on and a minimum of 2 off, again, except for the beginning and end of a month in doing that. Next one, please. This one, actually, the GDO condition is probably something that can be very handy, especially if you're thinking of bidding open time. If you do not set a number of GDOs in PBS, the system will automatically default and award you 6 GDOs. But you can actually go as high as 11, and you can actually go down as low as 2. And the reason why this may or may not be important to you, because if you have a GDO, you cannot do open bidding on a GDO. At the same time, if you have a GDO, it means that you cannot be flown into a GDO. So if you're somebody who likes to do a lot of open time bidding or wants to create more flexibility by leaving yourself more options for open time, you may want to request a low number of GDOs. If you're somebody who wants to kind of not be flown into days off or not give scheduling much flexibility, you may want to request a high number of GDOs. The GDOs are actually determined where they fit into your block by your prefer off bid line requests. So the system will actually follow that. It has certain rules it has to kind of play with, and that is explained in much more detail in the PBS Bidders Guide that's available on the EPUB. But again, if you want to have a lot of flexibility in bidding open time, bid for fewer, and you'll actually have to do this. Otherwise, like I said before, minimum will be set to 6. Next slide, please. Waiving is another option. Right now, you can waive one of the two rules, which is either 1 in 7 or 4 off in 14. As an example, if you waive the 1 in 7, you can work up to 10 days in a row, but following that, you must have 4 days off. If you're waiving the 4 and 14, you can work 6 days on, then you can have 2 days off, and then work 6 days on again. So again, it depends on, are you trying to maximize days on, or are you trying to maximize days off? And those are tools that you can use, but you can only use one of those. Next slide, please. This is an example of somebody who wants to have reserve. I really want reserve. So you'll notice the very first thing they did was put a bid group called Start Reserve Bid. When PBS reads that, it'll trigger and go to the first start reserve that you see at bid line number 2. In this particular case, the person's asking for a specific pattern, but they're also saying, if you can't build me that pattern, jump to the next bid group. You'll see at bid line number 4, they have something that they've added to their bid line, which is called Else Start Next Bid Group. So if PBS cannot build a 3 and 4 days on pattern, try a 3 and 5 days on pattern with 3 days off. See if you can do that for me. If that doesn't work, this bidder is saying, give me 3 and 6 on with 3 days off. And if not, just give me 9 GDOs, but I prefer off Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and the system will try to give you as many as those. It's always a good idea to leave PBS an out, just in case some of the things that you're asking for are not possible. It saves you as well, because you may have made an error or made a mistake in your calculations as to what you can do. And if you don't leave yourself a backup, you may be left with just about anything. So that last bid group with the Start Reserve that doesn't ask for anything else, that's kind of my backup in there, just saying that I'll take anything, just give me as many Sunday, Mondays, and Tuesdays off. Next slide, please. And the last slide in this presentation, it talks about, I want a block, but if I can't get a block, I'll take reserve if that's not possible. So we look at our very first bid group, and it's a pairings bid group because it says start pairings with it. This person is really eager to have a block, and they're actually waiving everything. They waived the 1 in 7, 1 in 14, which you can in a start pairings bid group. They want minimum credit. They want December 25th off. It's a little bit of an older slide from 2013. But they want December 25th off, and if you can't give me that, start my next bid group, and then I just want pairings that are 2 days long, and allow PBS to fill anything else with the award pairings bid line. If for some reason you're forced to work on the 25th, PBS will then be triggered to jump to your next bid group, which starts at bid line number 7. You can see that on point number 3. Another start pairings group. Now I'm not waiving anything, but you know what? If I have to work December 25th, what I'm kind of saying here is, I want to work overseas, so my 5,000 series pairing numbers. If I can't get enough overseas, I want pairings with a layover of over 10 hours, pairing total credit over 10 hours, as long as it's 1 day. I don't know how that thing, greater than 1 day. And if you can't build me a complete block with that, you know what? Go to my next bid group. Again, at that bid line number 11, you see now I want reserve. And by doing that, I'm skipping over what you see start pairings and award pairings. They don't have a bid line number on them. And what that means is those are the embedded bid lines that PBS has in there for everybody. So I'm saying at that bid group with that starts at bid line number 7, if I cannot have that kind of pairing block, I don't want anything, send me to reserve. Now, I'm going to jump down to my bid line number 12. And if December 25th is still important to me, I'm still going to ask it off because it would be kind of crazy if I was really wanting it off not to ask for it in reserve. So that's essentially, in 2 quick little kind of examples, how I can control and manipulate the system in order to try to give me either the block I want, or if that's not the case, perhaps the reserve I want, bypassing giving me just any block. And that concludes the presentation, and you can look back at my beautiful picture with the white little bubble on there.
Thank you, Paul. I really like the presentation. I like your PowerPoint with the little numbers on the site. It's easier to follow. So thank you very much for that. Again, we apologize that we are unable to see Paul, but it seems that we have faced a problem with Wesley. So Wesley, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm on my phone. Is it working?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Wesley is our component chairperson for the reserve committee. He's going to talk to us about the most common question asked by our colleagues. So go ahead, Wesley.
Yes, hi. I'm Wesley, Reserve Committee Chair. And yeah, I just thought I would go over, I guess, the most common things. Sorry, they're on my phone, so I'm going to try and remember what they are as I go through them. So I'll do this one sec. So the biggest questions that I get emailed on, or the biggest concerns that seem to come across, are with regards to assignments, how they're done, how they're placed, who goes first. Call-in reserve is another big one. So when you're on call-in reserve, one way for us to track that correct ratios are going through is that you actually call in. So we need you to physically call the scheduler, like the contract states. If you have an
Could you
assignment
speak closer to your microphone, Wesley?
Oh, sorry?
Yeah, closer. Yeah, it's better.
Oh, that's why it's not working. Okay, hold on. Let me try one other thing. Sorry. There's this better?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So sorry, call-in reserve. So I don't know if you guys caught that, but just we recommend that obviously that you follow the contract and call in for call-in assignment to check your award. Unavailable for duty while on pairing. If that ever does happen to you when you're mid-pairing and something happens, we recommend you contact the local immediately to get that rectified, not just wait. And airport standby, this has been a very common concern for at least the last 6 months, where I continually get emails on this. If you are awarded a third airport standby in any month, we recommend that you ask the scheduler, has everyone else done the 2 airport standbys? And then, of course, send me an email or contact your local. We are successful in always getting it removed if you bring it up. So please, please, please bring that up, because it's very unlikely that everybody has done that. And those are the main big ones that we get. Of course, we get lots of various other questions, but those are the 4 main ones.
Okay. Okay, so before, maybe we could take some questions. Do we have any questions on the sidebar? We'll take the questions from the members. We have some questions on our own that we have prepared. Carmela, our co-chair of the grievance committee, has prepared some questions that are common. So we're going to go through that list. But first, if you have any questions, please type it on the sidebar. We will be more than happy to answer you.
Okay, so maybe we should start with one of those questions.
Yeah, sure. Okay, go ahead, Edith.
So we have a lot of questions about the call-out time for reserve airport standby. So is it 1.5 hours or 2.5 hours? CrewSched says they only need to give me 1.5 hours.
Okay, and the answer? Well, the company should always give you the 2.5 hours, if possible. If not, you're trying to do your best, but technically they should be giving you the 2.5 hours if possible. And if you have a specific scenario, then please bring it to the attention of your local. We will deal with it. Just to give you an idea how we are functioning also, everything should be reported to your local, and the local bring it to your attention. We're trying to improve the communication, and we have created a conference call every week on Monday. We communicate everything. We have a conference call with the employers, and we are trying to fix things as we go. So please, anything you report to your local base, and we will be more than happy to answer you. Okay, so we have some questions on the side. Edith, if you want to read the question.
So Roberto Garza asks, with new contract, when we get flown into an R day or an RDO on reserve, what do we get paid?
Well, it's a very good question. We are reviewing. We're just about to write a bulletin. We're working on a bulletin right now. We are reviewing because it's the implementation. And you must understand that every time that there is implementation of a new collective agreement, it takes time. We understand that it was reported to us that some crew scheduler might not have understand the language properly. So right now, we are about to put a bulletin together. We're going to talk about the DOT because there's lots of misunderstanding also in the DOT. There shouldn't be. Language is very clear. I will repeat, the language is very clear. there shouldn't be any problem. So Roberto, I'm gonna answer to you, but I'm gonna answer in an official bulletin because I still need to review. We have a meeting tomorrow also with labor to review these things, and then we will produce an official bulletin to all the members in regards to the reserve flown into the GDO, RDO, and also to the DOT. We'll make it very clear so that everybody's on the same page and that all the crew scheduler get the same message. So I will answer to in a bulletin. I apologize, but I want to make sure that this is clear and concise. So next question.
So Joe Silva asks, is there any way to bid reserve first and then backup pairing bid? PBS does not seem to allow this, keeps bumping my pairing bid first. So Paul, any answers?
No.
Okay, next question.
Actually, yeah, the answer is no, and I'll tell you why. When PBS was negotiated, when the reserve portion of PBS was negotiated, and that was a little while ago and a little bit before my time, the company's insistence was that PBS be able to that they would be able to rerun the reserve numbers in PBS, and because of that, reserve has to be run last. So by putting reserve perhaps in between two start pairings bid groups, and if there was a rerun of the reserve numbers, it's possible that because of that change, somebody would bump back to a start pairings, and that would mean rerunning everything. One of the difficulties that exists in PBS is our size. We are a little bit over 2,500 to almost 3,000 bidders in the flight attendant category in Toronto, and that does create some problems. And this is one of the ways of getting around that problem. And it's not a speed thing with computers because computers have actually sped up, and we're still seeing run times of sometimes 5, 6, 8, 10 hours. Just so that you know, the PBS process, once the bid's closed, will take almost a full day before we get any kind of result. And that result is then looked at and viewed by individual committees who are local. So that might sometimes take a little time. So sorry about that. We do know that it is possible, but unfortunately, it was not part of what our PBS product was, and that was known from the get-go. It's not something we found out by mistake, but that was how it was designed to work for us.
Thank you, Paul. So Antonius is just pointing out to some clarification that even if crew scheduling advises you with less than 2.5 hours, the reserve should not refuse the standby. They should just say, okay, I will do my best to be there. I will do my best.
Always never say no. Just say that you will do your best to show up at the airport on time. And if for some reason you cannot make it, then at least you didn't refuse. You did your best. They should have given you more time. Okay, next question.
So Leslie
Thank you,
Jakeman asks, if CrewSched is CrewSched allowed to send you a Globe notification during your 12-hour crew rest? For example, my flight, I'm assuming, arrives at 10 p.m. Crew rest starts at 22:15. Globe message comes to my cell phone at 9 a.m. for an 11.5-hour flight departure. Is legal.
So Wesley, do you want to answer that? Oh, sorry.
There, am I working? No, it's okay. Okay, so currently I'm saying that is legal. They can send you the notification. However, it's not your responsibility to be checking for the notifications. So they're correct in being allowed to send something like that to you, but it's not your responsibility to consistently be checking your phone while you're sleeping or on crew rest. That work?
Yeah, excellent, Wesley. Thank you. Next question.
Okay, there are no more questions on the sidebar, so we'll go in our reserve question.
Number 2.
When I'm on call-in reserve, do I need to call in the night prior during the call-in time, even if I'm on crew rest? Sorry. So if I'm on crew rest, the night before my call-in duty the next day, do I need to call in?
The answer is yes. Yes, the answer, you are required to contact crew scheduling on your calling day, usually between 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock. and even if you are on a day off or at a crew rest or on a vacation. Anything to add to that, Wesley? We missed you here.
Sorry, this is confusing going back and forth. Sorry, so you were talking about calling in the day before when you're returning from an assignment?
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, you always call in the day before, unless as per the collective agreement you get a release from call-in prior to that for either vacation or time off.
Excellent. Next question. Do we have any question on the sidebar?
No. Okay, so if I'm called to operate a flight, and then when I get there, they no longer need me and put me on standby, does this count towards the 2 times they can put me on airport standby in the month?
I would say yes. The answer is yes. This count towards the 2 times maximum that you can put on airport standby. And only once all the employees have been put on standby twice in a block month can we require to report a 3rd time. Okay, next question.
Okay.
Silva, Zero Silva, we have a question on the sidebar here.
Oh, we have a couple now. Maybe dreaming here, but here it goes. The new reserve MMG for me is not advantageous, and many of my colleagues are of the same opinion. The new release is 77.5. Actually, it's 77, the new release, I believe. Is there any way to get around this? Perhaps discussing with the company an option to waive current MMG, which may be mutually advantageous, win-win. So the problem with the MMG is we were trying to help reserve people who do not finish their hours, which is quite common in Vancouver, unfortunately. So that was the reason for the increase. Now, if we're increasing the MMG, we can't leave the release time lower than the MMG. So now we would be saying, I can be released 72 hours, but you need to guarantee me 75 hours. So it doesn't work that way. You have to, if we increase the MMG, we have to therefore increase the hours for being released. I don't know.
And I think referring to the 77.5 because of the 2 hours and 2 hours and 30 minutes buffer, isn't it? Why?
I know, but it doesn't have anything to do with that. I don't know why we got that and 30 minutes language in our lingo. I don't know where the mix-up came from, but the release was always at 72 hours, and now it's 77 hours. So there is no and a half.
There's no room to negotiate that. The fact that we got the 75 hours, then we have no choice to go with the 77 hours. Okay, next question.
Oh, Michelle, I'm going to stop you there for 1 second. This is Dominic. You have one question that was skipped. Idil, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. When will the article, parenthesis, open flight bidding, B8.26.08 be in effect?
Which one? Hold on. Can you repeat the number, Dominic, please?
Sure, it's B8.26.08.
And what is this about exactly?
Open flight bidding.
We didn't change anything in open flight bidding.
Yeah, this is like an old article. There was no change. So what is the question?
Idil, I'm not 100% sure that I'm getting the meaning of your question. If you wouldn't mind retyping it, maybe in a bit more detail, and we'll get to it a little bit further down this video conference.
Thank you, Idil. Okay, next question, Wesley. For example, if I'm on an airport from Dina, if I'm on an airport standby, do I need to call to check out if I am on a call-in day after my minimum 4 hours is up?
So you're asking me? Yeah, the answer to that is yes. You do need to call to check out when you're on a call-in day at the end of your cycle. And if you call after the 4 hours, they are not to award you anything.
And if you are, I'm just playing the advocate here, If you would be on a reserve day and you are put on standby for 4 hours, do you need to call after?
No, you do not.
The answer is no. Exactly. You know what? One of the things that you could do also when you are at standby at the com center, it's always good maybe to print your schedule. You know, on the schedule when you leave the computer, there is your time that you're leaving the airport. So if there's any problem in the future, you have a proof with you at the time that you had left the airport. So this is a good way to document and have a proof that you were there for the full 4 hours when you are on reserve in our day.
Okay, so if I can come back to Idil, I think I might know what she's talking about. The schedulers recently told the flight attendants that they couldn't do open flying because they didn't have the manpower or something. So I think that's what she means. When will it be? When will the article be in effect? So I think she's referring to the fact that crew scheduling stopped doing the open flying, and she's wondering when it will start up. Crew schedule have never stopped doing open flying. They are always required to, this is an article we have in our collective agreement, and they have to abide by it. So if you have reports of schedulers saying you cannot do open flying as per Article B82608, please report it to your local office, okay?
Yeah, we will take care.
So sorry if I'm making assumptions, Idil, but I think that's what you're referring to.
Can I actually, can I just jump in there?
Yeah, sure, please, Wesley.
Sorry, so she just wrote, the question is actually open flying on RDOs. At this time, we cannot bid for open flights. The article indicates, and I quote, you may bid pairings that start on your non-invalid D days off. So I think basically the system does not always allow the members to bid on their actual days off, and that's what she's getting at is when will GLOBE be enacted to allow them to do it. However, if I could just speak on this, Idil, I think the main issue with this is crew rest is often overlooked. So if you arrive on a Friday at 2100, you're not legal to bid an open flight on your Saturday D day until 9:01 a.m. And a lot of times members feel that because it's a D day, you can bid anything on it. So I think that's kind of what you're looking at, because I do know that is something we had discussions on in the past and did get fixed or rectified. But if there are issues with it, by all means, bring it to the local and then we can look at specifics.
Okay. Next question from Groupal, Edith.
If I remember correctly, with the new collective agreement, there is a $3,000 per year dedicated to TS improvements. What type of improvements are we planning to use this money for? Could we use the money to make the change so we can actually put a pairing bid after reserve?
Paul, can you answer that one?
Yep, I can actually answer on both of those. The first one is the $3,000 per year was to purchase items from the PBS catalog of bidline options. So there are other companies, the system that we have. We're a customer of a company called Navtech who produces the PBS system, and other customers have different options. We all don't have the same PBS. Other customers in the PBS group have different things that they can ask for. They can ask for example, limiting the amount of carryout they have from one block to a month or an overlap. They can bid on different other things. There is a set of other bidline options that exist that we don't have. Why that was at the beginning, not sure, but anytime we want to implement something, there is a cost involved. So the actual monies that have been set aside are to either get items from an existing catalog or perhaps to put items on a catalog. Right from the get-go, it is easier just to purchase an item that already exists rather than to have one developed. And it's almost a tenfold difference. To develop a new type of bid line could be $35,000, $40,000, $50,000, but to use to transfer an existing bid line that already has been developed is a fraction of that. So that's why we're looking at getting items from this catalog. Now, how will they be chosen? Well, it's not up to just one individual. It would be, I certainly have a preference of what I'd like to do, but it's not for me to determine that or for anybody else. I mean, it's certainly the idea would be to get the PBS committees involved, and they now have a copy of this catalog. And what we're asking is to try to get 5 to 10 of what their picks would be. They're much closer to you. They see you on on a monthly basis, whereas I sit in this lovely, expansive office at the back of the parts department at Air Canada. So they're more in touch with what people are actually talking about. So we're asking them to look through the catalog, come up with some ideas, and then we'd like to kind of put the ideas forth and say, you know, if you could choose your top 2, 3, 4, 5, and then go from there. The other part of the question is, can we use the money to actually have a start pairings bid, then a start reserve bid, and then a start pairings bid? Actually, that aspect or that option in PBS already exists. It's just not one that we use. It's not what was part of the negotiations with CUPE, Air Canada, and NAVTEC at the very beginning. Air Canada was insistent on having the reserve bid as a separate entity, which this is the only option that will do that. The other customers within PBS that have that option are very small groups. It's going to sound funny, but the Delta Airlines pilots use our PBS system, and they have that type of bidding. And you must think they have tens of thousands of pilots at Delta, but when you break it down by base and by classification, they're actually much smaller numbers. So they can have 200 or 300 people in a classification, whereas we have a situation with Toronto of having a couple of thousand. And it's that couple of thousand that makes a difference, is that when you change something, the butterfly effect will often make a complete change. And we don't have the amount of time with the awards process to have 3, 4, 5, or 6 days in order to produce a result. So although that is an option, it's not one that we can even pursue because it's not feasible really with the system that we have and with the number of people that we have.
Good answer, Paul. And yeah, we're all, when we negotiated that with ASEX, it was clear that we won't involve as many people. And we're absolutely in favor of working with the PBS team. And of course, you know, if we have the final 3, we'll come to the membership, you know, because this is a tool for all of us. So we could do a survey also of the things that you would like the most that the PBS committee will eventually suggest. So next question.
We have Joe Silva who's asking, just curious, what percentage of open flying goes to reserve? That's a tough question. We don't have that information readily available. We would have to do research and figure out what the actual percentage would be, but that's definitely a good question. Roberto Garza asks, what is the best way to be able to do 100 hours in a reserve block month? So maybe Wesley wants to answer that, or Paul, or whoever.
Oh, whoever.
No, go ahead, Wesley. You're on.
Okay, I'll jump on that. So as Paul touched on during his presentation, the best thing to do is do the minimum amount of guaranteed days off and then request your days off towards the end of the month. Currently, for doing voluntary extension while on reserve, you must either complete your hours or have been released and or be doing it on the days off at the end of the month. So that's your best way to do 100 hours is to bank your time off at the end of the month and make sure that they are not GDOs. Thank you.
Thank you. Good answer. Okay, next question, Edith.
Did Paul have something to add on that, or no, that was okay?
No, I think Wesley did very well, and it touches again upon how many GDOs you want to bid for and ask for, and where they get put. To cover and to expand on what Wesley was saying, if your very first bid line or your very first prefer off bid line is asking for, and I'll use the example, February 29th, 28th, 27th, if that's your first prefer off bid line, your very first GDOs will be, and let's say you get awarded those days, your very first GDOs will be February 29, 28, 27. So if you want to maximize 100-hour flying, that's when you have to be careful about what order you put your prefer off bid lines in and how many GDOs you request. So if you want to leave a lot of open space at the end of your reserve block, then you want to kind of push all of your days off there. Start asking for your days off earlier. And we all know that your very last set of days off, if they overlap into the next month, automatically become GDOs. Try to get the other rabbit in here. They all become GDOs, but they're still available for flying on that 100 hours. So you want to fly as much as you can beforehand, which again if you want to maximize flying, you have to look again at not having as many GDOs. In one way, not having GDOs can bite you in the behind if you're inflexible in your schedule, but if you have flexibility in your schedule and don't have to worry too much about having a specific Tuesday or Wednesday off, if you minimize the GDOs, you can maximize your flying and then, of course, give yourself the opportunity to maximize your chances of 100-hour flying.
Thank you. Okay.
So next question. Oh, were you ready?
No. Next question. Go ahead.
So Dina Crisatelli asks, when it comes to international flying on reserve, there is a list Crusquet is supposed to follow. How do we know this is actually being followed? So Dina is referring to Article B819, which is the overseas assignment sequence. And this article says an overseas assignment sequence may be established by mutual agreement between the Crew Resource Center and local president at each base in accordance with seniority and reserve block holders. So there was no request from any of the locals to monitor the overseas assignment sequence. And because it's so clear in the collective agreement, that would have to be the procedure that would kickstart the list being available to us, and that hasn't been done. So again, if you have issues with the overseas assignments, I would suggest you go to your local and maybe speak to the president. They can, maybe offer some research to see if they can come up with some information to back up your claim, and then maybe that would be a possibility to for the local to contact the Crew Resource Center for that, or sorry, the scheduling department. I don't know if Wesley, you have anything to add on that?
Hi. I can tell you that a little bit of history on this. When it was Ricardo Miranda, I believe, was the last name, in Calgary. He was a local president, and him and I worked on introducing this per se in Calgary, and I can say it was a challenge. It was quite a feat, but it was something that we did maintain for 3 months, and then it subsequently just went away. Bringing it all up to today, I do get many emails on that kind of stuff on overseas. Was this person legal? Was this not? A lot of times, the crew schedulers will rotate the flying. It is rotated when they're able to do it. And if a member ever has a question wondering, hey, why is Edith getting all the overseas flying, or why is this person always going to Hong Kong? It's never an issue to bring it up and to look into it, because 99% of the time it was scheduled and assigned correctly. And it really will allow you to understand kind of that order of assignment. So please bring that up as well. But with regards to the list, like Edith said, bring it up with your local for sure. And, the schedulers are always willing to look at different ways to look at it for sure.
Thank you, Wesley.
The other thing too, I think that they monitor as well is the how the flights are assigned to the lowest credit reserve person. So that can also help. Maybe if you have the lowest credits, your possibility of getting an overseas, which are higher credit pairings, is increased in that sense. But other than that, there is no procedure for it really.
Okay, next question, is it?
Guylaine Page Alexander asks, Crusquet refreshes open flying at 10 a.m., yet we reserve can no longer open bid even being legal. Any way to change open bid close times? So I'll let somebody else answer that.
Well, Wesley, do you have an answer for that?
Okay, so Paige, we've looked into this in the past. It's an excellent question. Basically, any and all sick holds and that kind of stuff are released at the 10 a.m. mark. And once that happens, it immediately goes into, and please correct me, Edith Michelle, it goes into voluntary extension for bidding up until 2000 local. And then it goes to call and reserve up until 2300, depending on the time, I believe, of departure of the flight the following day. Is that kind of correct?
Voluntary extension goes to 2200.
2200, my apologies.
So there's an overlap in call-in and VE awards, actually, which is an issue in it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's how that works. And yeah, so for this being open, it's pretty tight language just because of sick hold and open bidding and the time frame for everything. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's correct.
So that's why it's not really something that we've ever been able to attempt to adjust, I believe.
Yeah, so that's right. And we are aware, Guylaine, that there is, overlapping periods of awarding flights, which for that, that time at night where call-in reserves, call-in time overlaps with the VE time, we think that we have violations, but then they'll show either the VE award sequence list, the VEs go first. But then if we show a VE who wasn't awarded properly, then they'll say, well, it's call-in time for a reserve. So you're absolutely right. There's something wrong with the call-in times. And unfortunately, this wasn't fixed in negotiations, but it's definitely something that maybe we can open a discussion with the company with. There's no obligation, but it's definitely something that we should be looking into to clarify that and make it work better for open flying at 10 a.m. in the morning for sure.
Okay, next question, Edith.
We have
Gurpal.
Paul again. So regarding Paul's response to my question during ABBA bidding, we were allowed to put block bids after reserve. So how can the company insist that reserve be bid last? Haven't they changed our working conditions, limiting our options without what you're saying, Paul? About it taking longer to do the awards, but maybe there's a way to make it more efficient so it won't take so long. Well, speaking for myself, when I want certain time off, I'm willing to bid reserve to get it. But if I can't get it, even on reserve, then I'd rather be on block. I'm okay with waiting 5 days for my award, so long as the award I finally get is the best one for me.
Paul, maybe you want to answer that?
Sure. And you're right. In the ABBA days, it was possible. You have to remember, though, ABBA were pre-built blocks. That everything was pre-built. It was going to. It wasn't a la carte. It was basically a set menu. So with that kind of system, and where essentially you got either a block or reserve, and your block was already set aside, so you already knew you were doing 3 Paris and a filler, or always doing Edmonton layovers, or something else. With that type of system where everything is basically already determined as far as a block is concerned, yes, the ability to do that is very possible. With the negotiations for PBS, though, that did put limitations on the system and the ability for the system to develop and create a result in a timely fashion. And there are other elements too that also impact that. Another reason for PBS being implemented also allowed for the pairing production to be delayed, and that was an important part. And I'll talk about the history without really taking any sides right now. It was an important part from the company because the company then had more time to refine pairing so that there would be fewer pairing revisions, which was something that was costly to them. So in negotiating PBS and the implementation of PBS, part of that was to push all of the awards processes later on in the month. If you go back before 2005, the awards process happened sooner for many cases. It's only with the implementation of PBS that we've actually seen the awards process pushed back into the month, so it's later and later. We just finished the contesting process today, and we're the 26th of January, so we're already pretty close to the end of the month. So adding extra days in the month would have to push the pairings process sooner, which the company might have a problem with. We wouldn't have a problem with it, but the company might. But they also can go back to say when PBS was first negotiated, this was a known thing. This is something that was known to them. Therefore, that's why it was negotiated that way. So that was actually intentional on their part. Not that it was something that the union didn't know of or wasn't aware of, but that was something that was intentional. And I understand it because we looked at it as well, saying, is it something that we could do when we were first introduced to it? It just became an issue of the amount of time. And yes, we could increase the time, but that would be for more than just us to decide. The company would also have to decide on that. Between us, I don't see them going back on that. It's something that they enjoy because they do have to play around with numbers quite often when it comes to reserve, because the number of reserves are actually not predetermined. The number of reserves are actually determined by the difference between the people who are available and the people who are block holders. If you have 100 people available in your base and the system has created 92 blocks, that means there are 8 people on reserve. if something changes for any particular reason, and that has to be and those 8 people need to be relaunched, then you have to relaunch the 100 people, and that's what takes the time. So this was something that was known. It's I tell you that there's a different system only because I just want to be as upright as possible. But that was something that was predetermined prior to getting into this. And don't forget too, we do have resources. If you ever have any questions, I know we're talking an awful lot here, but we do have resources that are available to you. We have full-time PBS reps who are at each local, and they're available to you. You can contact them through your local union office. The other thing that we have is the bidder's guide that's available on EPUB, which covers reserve to a greater extent than what we're talking now. So I understand where you're coming from as far as the ability to bounce back and forth from a block, and absolutely, a block for many people is much more desirable than reserve. However, it's not something that we can go back to, not because it's not feasible, but it's something that had been negotiated as part of the implementation of PBS.
Thank you, Paul. That's a great explanation. Edith will take the next question.
Okay, we have a question from Priyanka. Is there a rule on reserve that if you have a block of days off at the end of a reserve month, you can do VE and it would be in addition to the 75 guaranteed hours?
Wesley, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, that's a voluntary extension. So again, as long as you're on days off, not guaranteed days off, and as long as you have no reserve days preceding that within the same block month, then yes, all flying done on those days on a voluntary extension basis is paid above the minimum monthly guarantee, which is now 75 hours.
Thank you. Other question, Edith?
We have Shirley Chen. She asks, if CrewSched calls a reserve with less than 2.5 hours notice to departure, are they allowed to change the check-in time to reflect the actual time when the person arrives at the airport? Not for an airport standby, but for an actual flight assignment.
Wesley, would you like to answer that?
Thank you. I would, for airport standby, for a flight assignment like this, for an actual flight arrival, I would say yes, that they can. You made your best effort to get there, and when you reported for it, you're there for it. But I could be incorrect on this one. I've only dealt with this with airport standby. This is a flight assignment.
Yeah, we would be assuming that the person, if the scheduler changed the arrival time, it would mean that the person arrived after the regular check-in time. I'm assuming that they're not increasing their duty day, right? So
they're decreasing their duty day based on arrival. So that's why I would say it's correct. Because I mean, when they technically showed up is right. Does that make sense? They're on reserve, so they technically show up at 21:25. So their duty period starts at 21:25.
Shirley, Antonius is asking on the sidebar, what time did you actually arrive, Shirley? Is this an example of a situation that happened to you?
Just going to give her time to answer.
In the meantime, while Shirley is answering, I want to let you know that these webinars are recorded, and I invite you to invite your colleagues to watch them. We're going to do more and more of these webinars. Every month we will have one with different guests. So we hope that this will be popular. So far, it's been a great success. Yeah, so maybe Shirley, if it's in a special case, if you want to bring it to your local, we will discuss it with your local, as each case is different. You know, we want to make sure that we have the right answer for you. So maybe you want to send your question to.
Oh, there we go. They called me at 7 a.m. for a flight leaving at 9 a.m. for a wide body. So check-in was at 7:45. I arrived at 8 a.m. and they changed to 8:10. Well, if you arrived at 8,
they shouldn't be changing for 8:10 first.
See, it's a little bit gray because of the time that you arrive at the airport. Let's reverse the situation. If you're already at the airport and they give you a duty time that starts or a flight that leaves later, we wouldn't want them to change your duty time to later because you're already at the airport for that assignment, for that duty period. So it's a little bit.
Yeah, Shirley, if you could bring it to the attention of your local, and if there's any adjustment to be made, we'll make sure that it's changed.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Doesn't look like there are any in the sidebar.
Do you have
You can
one
ask
more?
another one.
Yeah, you have a question from Vienne. I'm going to read it to you.
Sure. Did we miss it, Dominic?
I think you may have just skipped over it in
We apologize. It was
No
not our
problem.
intent.
Okay, Vienne is asking, will the reserve handbook on the component site be updated soon with all of the changes made with this last collective agreement? Also, how do reserves claim for meal period per diems if on airport standby and no flight operated? I've tried in the past, always declined because I don't have a valid pairing number for the claim form. So 2 questions.
I'm going to talk about, I'm going to conclude with all the PDF and the information that we will send you after, but maybe Wesley, you want to talk about the meal period claim?
Yeah, so if you're entitled to a meal and you fall between the meal period now, it shouldn't be an issue because you automatically get paid the meal. But if it does not show on your pay stub, you enter a fictitious pairing number. So if you're in Toronto, it would be T1000, Montreal M1000. Pardon me, and leave a comment in the comment section saying it's airport standby, and 99% of the time it gets approved. If not, then you have to do a manual submission outside of that through records, and they'll go back in and approve that for you.
Good. And to answer the question, in terms of the PDF, we've been working closely with Wesley for the implementation of the new items that were negotiated. It's almost ready. We're just finalizing the final review. We have the English version. Then we will send it in translation. We should have this document ready very soon. And what we will do, we'll send you a bulletin with a link with a PDF version, so you will be able to either print it or to download it into your smartphone so that it's available to you. So I would say very soon, but first tomorrow we're going to send you the video of this, the video of this webinar, and as soon as the document is translated, we will send it to you. So I'm anticipating either by the end of the week or next week, we should have that in PDF, in French, in English, for you to download in your smartphone.
Michelle, to be clear, I think she was asking about the reserve handbook. Maybe.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so Priyanka has another question. With the new contract, we are allowed to ask for a crew rest to be restarted if it is interrupted. But is it at the discretion of the crew scheduler? What types of situations can the crew scheduler deny our request? It is not at the request of the scheduler. Note 2 of B50405 said, if a reserve block holder's crew rest is violated at home base, his or her crew rest will, at the reserve block holder's request, recommence at the time of contact. So it's up to the reserve person to decide if they want their crew rest to restart or not, if a scheduler calls them and interrupts their crew rest at home base.
Thank you, Edith. Any other questions?
Guylaine Page Alexander asks, how can we fix the unfair distribution of flying? For example, some reserve get called out daily, some will finish month with 12 hours, even if they're similar days on.
Well, this is hard. You know, you have to kind of report that to your local base. They will try to monitor Netline, and if we could see a pattern, we need to prove it, you know. And if we could see a pattern of the assignment, then we'll be able to prove it. The first step would be to please report it to your local base, then they'll be able to check the Netline system.
I can say also from in the past, we've had experience where we called them preferred children. So they usually would obviously get, great flying all the time. And we were able to sort of bring it to their attention. And usually after doing that, it was back to normal. But we have to have, like Michelle said, statements, proof, something that shows that this is happening. As reserve, you're on call. Whatever open flying they need to distribute, they will do that. And again, just to reiterate, it's based on the lowest flying hours. So there really isn't anything else that governs. And not only that, a good flight for Michelle might not be a good flight for me. So it's really difficult to judge. So again, bring it to the attention of your local and we'll investigate if there's a need for it.
And before we close, sorry, go ahead, Paul.
Remember too that there are people who are very good at open bidding. So if you see an open time award next to somebody's schedule, or if you happen to see that, that's another way. Some people are very aggressive with open bidding, and that kind of falls into what days you're prepared to work and not to work. It's because of course open time on reserve will go before just reserve assignment. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, Paul. Thank you. Before we're closing, guys, is there anything that you would add, Wesley? Anything you want to add?
I think for this one, just to kind of go back on it a little bit, Paige, I think you're talking about the Calgary base, and this is something that I have worked on with Anna and looked at. In the base, one thing a lot of people have to remember is on Globe, when you are looking at other people's flying or how the flying is done, or the days on or the days off, a lot of people do have certain portions of their schedules blocked, i.e. if they've been in with meetings, if they have art. When a pre-select took place, it might show that it was halfway through a cycle, but it's actually after art, which is legal. There's a lot of different variances. So I strongly advise people, bring it up with the local, go in, sit down, ask them to show you how it works, because almost 100% of the cases that I've looked at in Calgary have all been legit legal, because of the way the assignments came up, when they were dropped into open time, when the member booked off sick, or however that could happen. So we do look at that. More than happy to explain that to anyone out there. And it's always, again, it's best to get that knowledge under your belt so then you completely understand how it's working, why it's working, and how it benefits you, and how you can adjust your bidding to, instead of taking Fridays off, to working Friday, Saturday, Sunday, on how your chances of grow to get that flying based on your availability. So excellent question, but certainly something the local would love to look at with you for sure.
And Wesley, how can we reach you?
You can reach me at reserve@accomponent.ca.
Thank you. Paul, anything you want to add?
Nothing really. Again, your best source of information on bidding tips and tricks is to go through your local PBS committee. They can be their emails addresses are out there, and you can always get them at your local union office.
Yeah, I will reiterate. Thank you, Paul. I will reiterate, that it's very important that you go to your local base, to bring any attention. I know there's lots of people who wants to go straight to me and to send us email, but this is not the procedures, That's why we have the VPs that are the frontliner that are there to represent you. So please bring these concerns to the VPs. The VPs will inform their president. We have a structure internally of communication, and if there's any problem or wording that we do not agree in terms of the interpretation of the collective agreement, then your local president will bring it to us on a conference call, and we will be able, Edith and I, to bring it to the company to make sure that things are changing. I want to tell you also that it's great, so far we have a great relation. We're working closely with the company to implement everything. We have weekly conference call, we're meeting, we have weekly call with ASEX. We keep the communication tight. We want to make sure that everything that we have negotiated will be implemented. So just bear with us. You will see more communication. We're preparing a DOT bulletin. We'll prepare a bulletin on when you're flown on reserve on your GDO and RDO. So just be patient. We're working hard behind the scene. We will implement everything. And please invite your friend also to watch this recorded webinar. And we will do more of that. So thank you for your participation, and we'll send you a bulletin with this link. We'll send you the PDF as soon as we have it. And on a final note, we're working on the collective agreement. You should have a collective agreement in your hands in paper format. We just need to review everything. You know, you can imagine we have to review all the language, all the dots, all the T's, make sure that the language is accurate, that there's no mistake, and then we will send it in the printing shop, and you will have an available copy very soon and in PDF format also to upload in your phone. So, and also, yes, we're working, we were a bit delayed with the negotiation. We have the calendar coming, the printing was a bit delayed. But there's lots of people who like this paper format calendar produced by the union. So it's coming. It's at the printer shop, which was delayed because of the negotiation, but it's coming. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for your participation. And see you soon, and keep flying safe, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.